Hello, this is Education in the Community. I'm Laura Saul, your host, and I am here as a special surprise for Mr. Roy L. Clay. Welcome, Mr. Clay, and I'm here to surprise you on behalf of the community as well as on behalf of the U.S. House of Representatives coming from our Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Yes.
Here is our congressional record and the United States of America proceedings and debates of the 114th Congress, first session. The House of Representatives honoring Mr. Roy L. Clay, Honorable Barbara Lee of California in the House of Representatives, February 24th, 2015. Ms. Lee, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the extraordinary life of Mr. Roy L. Clay, known throughout the San Francisco Bay Area and the nation as a computer engineer, investor, community leader, and a dedicated husband and father. Mr. Clay has left an indelible mark on our nation. Mr. Roy L. Clay was born in Kinloch, Missouri on August 22nd, 1929, and even at a young age, Mr. Clay was inspired to learn. In 1947, 7 years prior to the Supreme Court's 1954 decision in Brown versus Board of Education, Mr. Clay was granted an academic scholarship to attend St. Louis University. He graduated in 1951 with a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, and by 1956, he was among the first modern computer programmers. After serving as a computer programming in what is now the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California, Mr. Clay was invited to join David Packard, co-founder of the Hewlett-Packard Company, to build the first reliable computer. Mr. Clay established software development, directed research and development of all computer products, and served as the general manager of the computer division. By the time he left Hewlett-Packard, he was the highest-ranking African-American employee in the company. Mr. Clay's contributions to the information technology sector continue to grow. In 1971, Mr. Roy L. Clay consulted with Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield, and Byers, a venture capital firm, to elevate their investments in computer-related firms such as Tandem Computer Company, Compaq Computer Company, and ITEL. Then in 1977, Mr. Clay founded Rod Electronics to develop the first electronically controlled
iPod.
Really? iPod. Wonderful. This test ensured that a product is safe from the fire and electrical shock.
Yes.
Hewlett-Packard Company, IBM, AT&T, and Xerox adopted his dielectric withstand tester and added it to their production lines. In 2003, in recognition of his many accomplishments in Silicon Valley, Mr. Clay was inducted into the Silicon Valley Engineering Council's Hall of Fame. Beyond his contributions to the information technology sector, Mr. Roy Clay has been a dedicated member of his community. He was the first African American to serve as the city councilman and vice mayor for the city of Palo Alto in 1973. Mr. Clay is also a founder and emeritus board member of the Olympic Club of San Francisco Foundation, founded with the purpose of generating funds to support underprivileged children in the 9 counties of San Francisco Bay Area. Today, California's 13 congressional district salutes and honors an outstanding individual, Mr. Roy L. Clay. His dedications and efforts in the information technology sector has impacted so many lives and helped to break the barrier for many African Americans throughout California and the nation. Thank you, Mr. Roy L. Clay, from our community and the city of the Congress. And we'll be right back. Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing presentation to Mr. Roy Clay. I have the honor of continuing our interview with him today, and I am Doris Mangrum. You have just witnessed what should be a part of every history book. You have just witnessed something that many people don't know, but everyone should. This gentleman who is in the studio today is nothing short of the founder in so many ways of the high technology that we enjoy today. And it is my honor to have this opportunity, Mr. Clay, to speak with you today. Thank you so much, sir, for all that you do, and I honor you.
Thank you, Connie.
Now there's a bit, we heard a lot about your story, if you will, in the presentation, and the honor is long overdue. But there is something else about your life that many may not know. It was read in the presentation, but you're from an area of this country that's very prominent in today. And what I'd like for you to share with our viewers, if you will, is some of that backstory of Ferguson, Missouri. It's very prominent now because of the shooting that happened several months ago. It's very prominent because of the protests that have been happening. It's very prominent because very recently there were 2 police officers that were shot. And so with that, if you can tell us a bit about your story, and then we'll move our way through to the story today of your life in Ferguson.
Yes. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate the recognition I've gotten, and I'm happy to come and tell my story.
Yes.
I was born in Ferguson, Missouri, actually. Kinloch and Ferguson were adjacent cities.
Okay.
Another very prominent person, Maxine Waters, was also born in Kinloch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was born in Kinloch, but I lived in the Ferguson School District.
Okay.
At that time, there were maybe 50 black people who lived in Ferguson. 50.
50.
50.
50, okay.
And at nighttime, I was not permitted to walk in Ferguson because I would be stopped by the police. In fact, in Ferguson, I remember one time when I was 14 years old, and I was doing gardening work in Ferguson. Hot summer day, I stopped to get a soft drink, and I sat on a curb to drink it. 2 policemen came by, asked what I was doing. I told them, and they said, get in the back of the car. I did. They drove me for maybe a mile, let me out, and said, don't ever let me catch you here again. Never let, although I lived in Ferguson, I was not to be caught in that part of Ferguson again. I told my mother about it because I was very angry. Her response was, you will be racism for the rest of your life, but don't ever let that be a reason why you don't succeed.
Wonderful.
Right.
When was this, Mr. Clay? What decade was this?
I was 1943.
1943.
I was 14 years old.
And this is 2015.
Yes.
And African American and men and women of color are still dealing with that same type of stuff.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
while we've made many strides with the work that you have done in your technology, we are still so far behind in the things that we need to move forward in the area of racism.
Yeah.
So continue your story about some of the experiences that you encountered while in Ferguson.
Well, I focused on education. My mother said, learn how to do something well. And I was admitted to St. Louis University while living in Ferguson, Missouri. And I was accustomed to finding overt and covert racism in the city of St. Louis at St. Louis University. In fact, at a restaurant on the St. Louis University campus, but privately owned, I went in for lunch, and I was told, we're very sorry, I'd like to serve you, but our patients would not like my doing that. So I had to leave that. There was a Fox Theater a block away, which I could not attend. But I focused on education. I was able to get a degree in mathematics, and my first attempt to get a job in the private sector, I was invited on the basis of my resume for an interview with McDonnell Aircraft. It's now McDonnell Douglas. And when I got there, they said to me in the reception area, we're very sorry, Mr. Clay, but we have no jobs for professional Negroes. Right. Again, I walked away. I taught school for a few years, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, I was through that avenue, and I met my wife of 38 years. And then I went back to McDonald, and they hired me, and I was introduced to computers in January 1956. Nobody knew how computers operated, so I got in with everybody else. There was no computer science discipline, right? And Bill Gates, by the way, was born in October 1955. He was 3 months old, right? So with regard to the digital divide, I was on the front side of the divide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You were teaching, you were learning while he was doing diapers, is what I'm hearing you say. Absolutely. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
And because of my knowledge of computers, I was offered a job at Launch Radiation Laboratory in Livermore, where the hydrogen bomb was developed. And I developed software to simulate radiation diffusion when an atomic bomb exploded.
Let me ask you something. This is such an amazing story to me. Are some of these practices that you developed still being utilized in today's technology?
Well, yes, kind of a different medium, but technology is still there. What Bill Gates did to develop Microsoft and become the richest man in the world was done after I had done that work at Hewlett-Packard Company.
You know, this is one of the things that's so interesting for African American history. You know, we celebrate in February. I believe that every day is African American history, Black history, Negro history, whatever you want to call it, because there's so much of this rich history like yours that's not been brought to the forefront. And so with that, this is really, if you will, uncovering a great story of where this all started, and what a great part that a famous African American as Mr. Roy Clay had in it. So thank you, sir, for your service and your gift to the world on the technology that you have presented and been a part of the software. But let's segue now to talk a bit about that city that now is your home city that is now so prominent on the front edge of the protest, and how it has kind of been a rallying point for us moving into a movement that has rallied people and gotten them again marching and saying enough is enough. From what you remember in your days and what you are now seeing being played in media that you're seeing and hearing and people are talking about, what do you think needs to be done or can be done? Because we're seeing some of the very same things you said happened to you at age 14, still happening now in 2015. From your estimation, having an understanding, not just from media, but having an understanding from actually having lived there and knowing the culture, and I assume still having family there, what are some of the things that you think could be done to help us move Ferguson forward? Well, we know that, you know, the federal government has said that there's some real serious areas that are going to be addressed, but you being, having the pulse of it, having been born there, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say that 85 years after I went through it, what helped me to get where I am need to be done today in Ferguson.
Okay.
Focus on education. Every child needs to be educated. Irrespective of discipline, learn how to do something well.
Absolutely.
And opportunities will arise whenever you're in a position of knowing something of value. And further, I had respect in my community. We live in a black community. There was no racism. Racism did not exist. It was all black. Everybody helped. Everybody helped me. My teachers made me think that I could do something well. And I tutored in mathematics in grade school, kids below me. And I traveled to St. Louis University by public transportation, and the people who helped me, worked me, saw me, made sure that they knew that they liked what I was doing. Right? And respect, give respect to earn respect. Do the best you can at everything you encounter. I say that everything has a soul. A soul is that which makes something what it is. So what I did always, when I encountered something, I learned the soul, what makes a computer work the way it does. Right? And while you're working, you're thinking all the time. Right? And occasions will arise when you can do something with what you know. Going from Ferguson to Hewlett-Packard Company, I just knew something more than what other people knew.
Well, you know, what I'm hearing you saying, it's just resounding so loudly, is your take on it, which should be the take that everyone has, is you need to learn something. We need to make education. I mean, we say it, but we need to make sure that we're doing what needs to be done. And some of the components that you've just added are community, are us caring again about one another, us looking out for one another, us having integrity in what we do. And you know, a lot of the things we lost some of our stride after the original movement, if you will, and got comfortable in those things that had happened. So what I'm hearing you say is that the way that we change this thing or move it back into the positive is learning something and being proud about it and doing your best at it.
Yes. And being willing to share.
Yes, absolutely.
And to help others as I have been helped.
The each one teach one method, I guess, if you will. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, this is, you know, to hear it coming from you, a man who is, you know, renowned, if you will, and who has accomplished so much in your life, I think we need to say it a lot more. You know, we're talking about our rights, but we have to take care of making sure we're doing what we need to do as well. In terms of, you know, the protests and the things that we're seeing on the street, what do you see as the outcome, or what are you hearing in terms of people that you know from back there, if you will, your family members? What are you hearing from them of some of the things that are happening that we may not hear on the news? That may be some of the things that are going on in the community to make us move in a positive direction.
Well, having lived in Ferguson all their lives, what they're hearing now is something very loud. Everybody cares about what everybody does. And they're focusing in on where I started, learn how to do something well. In fact, today, the 18th on Wednesday, a group is graduating from an entity called the Roy Clay Tech.
Oh, wow, nice,
learning how to use computers in a way to help other businesses That's it.
Wonderful. And this is for what age group is it?
I think the age group goes up to about 30.
Oh, adults. Okay,
adults,
I love
right,
it. Absolutely
right,
wonderful.
right,
Okay.
right.
And how long has that been happening?
Well, it's a 6-week program, and this is the ending of the first 6 weeks, and we take 10 people every entity, and we'll take it through again, and again. Hopefully
And again,
continue
and
that.
again. This is one of those kind of things that you don't hear about. That's why I would ask about those backstories that don't get talked about, just like your story being a backstory that should definitely be a front story. But everyone is talking about, how do we get involved? What can we do? What can we do to change? You've talked about education in terms of it being probably the biggest answer, but in terms of community, we've lost a lot of that, and we're now beginning to recognize it's time for us to come together again. In addition to education, what are some of the ways you, as a pioneer, not only in technology, but in education and in community and in integrity, what are some of the ways we can begin to move ourselves forward to a place where we can all be proud again in terms of that we are bringing up our youth, that we're bringing up and making our communities expand in the way that they used to, that we can care again? What are some of the things you believe that are important in addition to our education?
Well, an understanding that we're all in this together.
Absolutely, yes.
Sharing, giving respect, helping each person get as far as they can. And my mother always said that you can make as much money as you want, but you can lose it. But education is forever. You continue to work that. So that at 85, I'm still learning. Right.
You just hit a major nail on the head, Mr. Clay. You can never stop learning and never stop helping one another. I'm a firm believer in giving back and supporting each other. And where do we start with it? I mean, when I say where do we start with it, we know that's what we need to do. How do we just begin? Can it be just me starting to help one person, me starting a movement, you starting a movement? How do we make it happen and stick this time?
Well, with programs such as what we're doing today, I told people that as a result of the last 2 interviews, people had contacted me from all over the country, wanting to know more about my story. Now, the media at large does not tell the story.
No.
Right. It is through you and people like you that the story gets done. Right. And it gets told in a way that matters and matters. Right? Again, we talk about successes. We know that we've been able to break through in athletics. We're breakthrough in entertainment, but breakthrough in technology, something that we can do as well as anybody. Okay? And what I say, and not bragging, it just happened. I was there first. I was there before Bill Gates. I was there before Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Right? Doing.
You paved the road.
Right.
What I'm hearing you say is that we need to begin to have a rich understanding of the importance of our history. And we need to make sure that our children know, and not just about a few names, not just about a few folks, and not discounting the greatness of the people who rise to the area. Maybe here in the Bay Area we could start some type of Roy Clay Day or something that we do here. So I'm sure that there are many youth and adults as well that are not familiar with your story. And it begins then to take our backs from this way to bring our backs up, and we begin to recognize the importance and how important we are. But then it then hits back to your point of education being so critical in moving us from point where we are now to where we can be, because there's so much that we can do that we're missing. And I'm just thrilled to have had you here in the station, in the studio with me today. So tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you're currently doing, Mr. Clay, because believe it or not, we're coming near the end of our time. So what are some of the things that you're involved in right now?
My first priority is with young people, starting as early as I can get them all going, and again, to learning how to do something well, focusing on starting something and doing something, caring, and being a part of, understanding how the rest of us have made it. My late wife asked me to write a book for the purpose of just letting my kids know where I had gone.
Wow.
Right. And now I expand that to not only my kids, but other kids. And I also am getting it back to Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Silicon Valley. How Hewlett Packard Company, Intel, could do something if they could listen to what others have done. Now, I had an issue with, I tell you, Bill Hewlett, who was given,
Okay.
who didn't show disrespect, but I don't think I'd ever seen a black person who would lead the company in the way I led it. Yeah. I was the top person in computers at HP when Bill Hewlett came to me and said, "You've done a good job, and for that, I'll give you an increase of salary, and also I'm going to give you increased stock options."
Wow.
But he also said, I want to replace you as general manager with someone who knows nothing about computers.
You know what, unfortunately, I want to hear the rest of
Right.
this story, but we are rolling into the end of our time. But what I've heard you say is that you have definitely been a part of what you speak.
Yeah.
You are actually walking the talk by giving back to our youth, by making everyone aware of what it means to be and have integrity, what it means, the importance of education, the importance of commitment.
Right.
So viewers, you've seen and heard the wonderful things that this amazing gentleman, Mr. Roy Clay, has done in his lifetime. You now know, if you didn't know who he was and how he has contributed to the things that you and I enjoy today. And make sure that your children know. Make sure the people at your church know. Invite him to come and share his story there. That's another way that we can get the word out for those who may not see the story today. We can begin to have a movement not only around Mr. Clay, but other icons that are here in the Bay Area. There are so many people who have done great things that the story has been covered up. So I encourage you, make sure that you tell a friend about Mr. Clay. It has been amazing to have you here, and thank you again. And don't forget to join us on next time. Thank you so much. I'm Doris Mangrum, and this has been Education in Our Community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clay. You are